Good evening and welcome to the August 10th, 2023 meeting of the Abington Township Board of Commissioners. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Brodsky, Rothman,
Here.
DePlacido,
Here.
Vaughn, Brown,
Here.
Weingrad,
Here.
Henry,
Here.
DePone,
Here.
Carswell,
Here.
Spiegelman,
Here.
Ball,
Here.
Schreiber,
Here.
Bowman,
Here.
Vice President Fahey,
Here.
President Hecker.
Here. Please note that Commissioner Vaughn is excused and Commissioner Brodsky will be joining us late this evening. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. I have one announcement this evening. Agenda item VOC-05-081023, the Holy Redeemer Health System Pilot Agreement, will be removed from the agenda and reconsidered in September. And with that, we will move forward for public comment on the matters on the agenda this evening. If there are folks in the room that wish to speak to any items on the agenda, please come forward. State your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm Mike Tobin, Kirkwood Avenue, and my question, I have questions and concerns about the Economic Development Corp. Same thing I brought up last month. How much is this going to cost? And I get everybody thinks it's going to create all these jobs and all that, but if it's costing the taxpayers $10 million to get $1 million in tax return, it's not worth it. You guys spent 4 years putting this plan together. There should be cost associated with it. I mean, come on, it's basic. I don't know how you can vote on anything without the financial aspect. I also have a problem with some of the things that you think it's going to correct. There's no plan on what projects it's going to take on. A couple of the commissioners, some think that the vacant properties are going to get taken care of. Some think the blighted properties are going to take care of it. It's not. It's not. We don't even know what the vacant properties are. And the blighted properties, it was just used as a general term. So there's no plan. It's like, I don't know what you're voting on. You have no idea how much it's going to cost. You have no idea what areas are going to be affected. You don't know if it's going to take care of Roslyn Business District or whatever. There's no plan, and there should be. So I know this is just like basically a rubber stamp and I'm wasting my time up here, but you guys have to think to be fiscally responsible for the citizens first. I'm not sure who else you're being responsible to, but you need to be responsible to the citizens first. And without the cost involved, you're not. If you vote yes for this without knowing the true cost, you're not being fiscally responsible to the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, Joe Rozak from Abington. I'm at Susquehanna Road. I'm asking you, in response to all of us who are concerned, please do not vote on the Economic Development Corporation. Do not vote about adopting it at this meeting. I haven't heard any of you discussing this among yourselves over the past 4 years. I don't know what you're saying to each other. We've asked a lot of questions over this time. I can only have time to go over one. One question: why do we need this? We already have an Economic Development Committee, a committee of about 11, and you want to go to a corporation of 3 with whoever else they appoint to it. Response: I don't know who wrote this response. I've got concerns about it. The committee is limited in its powers and scope, whereas the EDC can act independently of the township. I'm part of the township. I don't want them independent of me. Independent of the township as its own corporation. its own, so its own interests. The EDC can be presented with an idea and immediately take action if they feel it is beneficial to the community. Where do we come in? The township, and deciding if it's beneficial. There's something wrong with that particular type of reasoning. It's leaving me and them out of it. You probably think it's not, but we feel that way. I've talked to neighbors about this, and they say, why talk about it? They already are voting on it. They made up their minds. That's what was said by this previous speaker. Unlike the committee, the EDC does not have to go through the same bureaucratic processes to take action. Bureaucracy gets a bad name, and I understand it. But in many cases, there's a reason for it. There's a reason for zoning. There's a reason for codes. It's to protect me, the township. I haven't heard any of you talking to me individually about this. You said you would, you haven't. Where are you? Now, here's another concern, the oversight on this. What is the oversight? If we don't like it, we ask, can we get rid of some of these members? Can we do something about it? No, you come to us. You voted for us. The implication being, you don't like it, vote us out. I can only vote for one of you. I can't vote for every one of you. Do not vote on this particular proposition tonight. Do not adopt it. We need more discussion. I want to hear what you are saying to each other. I haven't heard you speaking to each other. What are you saying? Are you just saying, oh, it's a good idea? Bye. Let's get it over. It's expedient. It'll look good. It's not the right way to do it. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kathy Gauthier. I live in Ward 15 in Roslyn, not very far from the business area. I am retired, and I did want you to know I've been waiting years, actually. That's why I came to this meeting tonight, for this to get approved. So I've been involved with meetings 5, 6 years ago on Vacant Property Review Board, on the Planning Commission, EAC. And one thing that, when I first moved here, flooding was the very top issue, and the township has done numerous things to take care of that. The second thing that always bubbles to the top with all the studies, the 2 Roslyn studies, the Keswick study, the Old York Road Corridor study, and others that I just can't quite remember at this time, always talked about economic development. That's always been, like, if not the top, close to the top priority of the township. And while the, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Here we go. I made a couple notes, so I do recall. The Economic Development Corporation is a great tool. It's not going to be the cure-all by any means. I've seen the township time and time again trying to do things, and I think this will help focus on specific properties and also help with the tax base overall so that we can remain a livable township. And I've seen great changes over time. I've seen some not great changes over time. And as I said, I do hope you do vote for this tonight, because as I said, I did come here because I was excited to see it on your agenda for approval. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners, my name is George Salona. The EDC is an irresponsible waste of money. Money Magazine rates Abington as the 24th best place to live in America based on cost of living, diversity, economic opportunity, education, fun and amenities, health and safety, housing, income, and quality of life. Why do we need an EDC? This is the result of decades of both hard work and community involvement by the people of Abington who have made the township into such a highly desirable area. Abington Township's favorability was not achieved by arbitrary haphazard changes to zoning or disregarding people's input into how the township is governed. The residents of Abington are now being faced with proposed changes that will negatively impact the township. The ordinance creating the EDC seems fast-forwarded without allowing the people of Abington a chance to review the details. Furthermore, this decision is being made in the summer months when many people are not available. This is not consistent with good faith and transparency, which should be priorities. The EDC lacks direct accountability to the citizens of Abington, who will be expected to fund it. Grants, loans, and other monies could be advanced through the EDC while circumventing public opinion, competitive bidding, zoning laws, permit issues, and public notice. No procedures, no safeguards are in place. No accountability, no transparency. EDCs are described as community-based Pennsylvania nonprofits. However, we have no documentation that this proposed EDC has been submitted and/or approved for a 501c3 exemption by the IRS or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and it may not be likely that such status will be granted based on the Institutes of Purely Public Charity Act of 1997. Since the EDC would directly benefit landlords and developers at taxpayer expense, it is not consistent with a nonprofit motive. It does not advance a charitable motive. It facilitates a private profit motive. It does not donate a substantial part of its services. It does not benefit an indefinite and substantial class of people who are legitimate subjects of charity. Far from relieving the government of a burden, it creates an additional level of bureaucracy, which again benefits developers and landlords at taxpayer expense with no accountability.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to conclude your comments. You're past your 3 minutes.
I have another page and a half, and it's very important because it deals with IRS regulations.
Sir, you're going to have to conclude your comments. Thank you.
Hello, my
Good evening.
name, oh, can I start?
Yes.
My name is Tina McKenzie. I moved to Abington in 2013. The low property tax rate made Abington much more affordable than surrounding townships. The strong commercial business base in our township helps keep our property taxes low. The EDC will help our community with viable business development, including supporting small business owners through grants, loans, and partnership. The EDC will help to fight blight by directing attention and resources to empty storefronts in order to enhance communities. As a resident of Roslyn, this is a particular problem, and I believe the EDC is our best chance to fill the empty stores on Easton Road with new businesses. I have faith in our elected Board of Commissioners, and I appreciate the thoughtful planning that has gone on over the past 4 years to create an economic development corporation that will be transparent, accountable, and controllable. The goal of the EDC will be to build a viable future for Abington, and I'm excited by the prospect. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Whoever hammered me down last time, I think I had started my comments by telling you I had had a severe brain injury. If you want me to sit down, just say so. You don't have to hammer me down. You triggered a migraine. That was extremely distressing, and you don't have to hammer me down. I would have, before my 3 minutes starts, I have a question for Mr. Clark. where do we find the rules of procedure governing these little monthly get-togethers?
You can.
We're governed primarily by the first-class township code. We're also governed by the Sunshine Act and various other, but primarily the first-class township code.
Is there anything in that code that prevents dialogue between the fellows sitting up there and ladies and the neighbors sitting on this side of the podium?
I don't understand.
No. But the Sunshine Act refers to this as public comment, where members of the public are free to come and speak and voice their opinion. It does not require it to be a back and forth, a question and answer session. It's called public comment.
Is there anything, though, in the code that when a neighbor asks you folks a question that prevents you from answering?
There's nothing that prevents the elected officials from answering a question.
I asked you please not to start the time while I was asking a question.
Yep, put it back to 3 minutes, please. Please state your name.
My name is Lorraine Zwolak. I am from Kirkwood Avenue, being impacted by the Toll Brothers construction. I've only been to a few of these meetings. What is most distressing about them, and what you keep hearing over and over, is that you are deceptive and you bury information on the website. I still couldn't find the Business Act stuff, and you're deceptive to us. You sent out a notice last month that the meeting was starting at 7:30 and that there was going to be discussion on the sewer for Toll Brothers, but the meeting started at 7 o'clock. The sewer was not on the agenda. But apparently, if you were online, the sewer was on the agenda online, and people that joined at 7:30 online didn't know that it had started at 7 o'clock because you had sent out a misleading flyer telling them it was going to be at 7:30. So you've heard complaints that you bury things on your website, you bury things in plain sight. Last month, I was here to talk about the sewer. The meeting concluded at 9 o'clock. I went. The sewer was brought up apparently at 11 p.m. that night. And my neighbor tried to call in and give a comment. She was told she should have raised it at 7 o'clock. But she was depending on that thing you mailed her that said it started at 7:30. I can ask you to please stop being deceptive. I don't know why you are. I'm completely out of time, and people sit down nicely when you tell them they're out of time. My problem is, especially with this Toll Brothers situation, we have asked our committeeman about it. He tells us to talk to Toll Brothers. We talk to Toll Brothers. The only problem with talking with Toll Brothers is they talk out of two sides of their mouth. And that's not the problem. The problem is they don't have three sides to talk out of, because one minute they say, oh, yes, I agree with that. And if they hear the slightest contention, oh, I agree with that. And by the end of it, you don't have any answers from them. And now they're going to put 3 retention basins where there were none and never mentioned, and the retention basins start at, let's say, 44 feet above sea level. My house is at 36 feet of sea level. But they're telling me, oh, no, that water is going to roll up the hill and then down, and it's not going to flood onto Kirkwood Avenue. And they have no explanation for it. You people already changed the zoning for that without really asking any questions, but going along with what they ever told you. And you all say, we have neighbors that feel differently than the folks sitting here. And I met one of those neighbors this week, and I said, how are you speaking for all of us? Oh, I talked to my next door neighbor, and I told them I spoke for everybody. All I'm asking is, you wanted these jobs, you ran for them, you asked for votes. And this is how an idiot like Trump gets elected. Because at local levels,
All right.
you become
I'm going to ask you to conclude your comments.
Yes, sir. You become comfortable, and you take the votes, and you take the favors. You take the decks and the koi ponds and whatever other free stuff you
Okay.
get. I know, sir.
Your time has expired.
I know,
Thank you.
sir. Please don't hammer me.
I'm not going to.
con-
I'm asking you to take your seat now. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm going to conclude with one 15-second conclusion. I'm only asking, these are your neighbors, to please just try to remember why you ran and remember why you wanted these jobs. And it wasn't the free stuff. Hopefully it was to respond to the people that ask you for help. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others in the room that wish to speak?
Hi, I'm Karen Milovich Davis. My husband and I are at 529 Berkeley, longtime residents of Abington and the Hollywood section. I do ask the commissioners to please keep the citizens in mind. And I think every time we are counting on large corporations to take over, they develop their own vested interests, and the government gets farther, government and reach gets farther away from the citizens. And I know this is why you took the jobs, to help us citizens and to make Abington a better place. So I'm asking you to vote no on the Economic Development Committee for this reason. I don't think we need it, and a lot of people had a lot of other different points. My main point of coming here today is I live a block and a half from the Ukrainian Center. We weren't notified. We understand that they're seeking a liquor license. And there's a lot of things that pop in my mind that are worrisome about this, one of which is we weren't notified. Another is it's a school. How can you have liquor being sold on the premises of a school? I'm not an attorney, and I'm certainly not a commissioner, but that's a thought. It's also taxed as it's like an independent tax. It's taxed, not taxed as a private entity. So how can you maintain your tax-exempt status if you're going to start to charge for liquor? I don't know the answer. I know Mr. Clark is here. He might know better than I. And also, what is their liability? They're looking to kind of get some money for some building, but they're going to have a huge amount of liability. I know many friends, one of which, my best friend's a paralegal that specializes in cases like this. So the second that someone is critically injured and there's a very bad event, this Ukrainian Center is really going to be on the hot seat. Take it from what happened to the Federation of Police in Northeast Philadelphia when someone took a car through a house. And they could probably lose, I'm guessing, their whole entire enterprise. Now, I know they came for a really good cause, and they do a lot of good in the community. But we are also their community, and we are a neighborhood of small houses, families. So when you start serving liquor around families, you're putting us at risk. And I'm a nurse practitioner. I have police officers behind me, and I always bring police officers to talk to children that I take care of. So you all know the quotient of how many drinks will leave someone impaired? 1. So you're going to serve 50 drinks, and you could have X amount of impaired people running around Hollywood.
I'm going to ask you to conclude your comments.
Yes. I'm asking to say no. We have a lot of trouble with people speeding. We have loud parties that are there that we're already kind of tolerating because we care about the cause, but at this point, it's not fair to the neighbors because the Ukrainian Center is a community center, and it is stationed right in the heart of housing. It's also a school, which kind of doesn't really quite make sense to start serving alcohol. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there others in the room that wish to speak?
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Rooney. I'm going to talk about the EDC, but just for 1 minute real quick. I'd like to recognize the incredible job our police have done since we had our last meeting. And I hope you all will talk about it or something as we get on with the meeting. But there's a couple of things. First off, there was a terrible situation at Willow Grove Mall. The police handled really well. And thank you to the chief, to the guys who were here, and whoever else did it. It really reflected well on Abington's attention to detail and response that worked out as well as it could. The second thing, there was a terrible incident in Roslyn. I don't know all the details, but I know that it was resolved peacefully with nobody hurt. And no matter what, that's a great resolution to it. And again, it's these guys and gals who are out doing it, so it's just awesome. Third, the cookout with a cop thing was awesome. I don't know if how many of you came. Really well handled. It was the best protected barbecue that I have ever been at, okay? And everybody felt unbelievably safe. The food was good also. And the chief did an unbelievable job talking because he makes an oath to protect our community. And when a chief sees something that needs to be brought up, namely crime from Philadelphia coming out here, then he talks about it. I thank him for doing that, and I hope you can pass that on. That was awesome for all of us. Okay, Economic Development Corporation. I got a minute and a half left here. I've tried to figure out who the heck benefits from this. You don't. Mr. Manfredi doesn't. Somebody's going to benefit from it because the like old, what was that guy's name? Billy Bones, follow the money. You know, show me the money. It's there somewhere. I don't even think any of you could answer it. But you did say, what do we want to do is improve the quality of life. That's in the introduction of the thing. How does high-density homes and all of the, high-density living and all of the problems that come along with that, like traffic and schools and everything else, improve the quality of life for people in Roslyn, people in Ardsley, people in North Hills? It doesn't, okay? So how does that benefit? And I've come up with the idea. You guys don't like single-family homes, small businesses in a suburban setting. It doesn't make sense to me because you all live here and you all moved here, but everything you do is against that. It's against Ardsley having a barbecue. It's against North Hills. It's against a small business in Roslyn. And I would love to have the pie-in-the-sky stuff to say that this is going to revitalize Roslyn. It's got nothing to do with that. And I know I only have a certain amount of time. You only have 3 directors or whatever the name is that's going to be on this board right here. They have to be residents of Pennsylvania and have an interest here. You're not going to pick somebody on Maple Avenue or on Hall Avenue or somewhere else in Huntington Valley. You're not going to put me on there, people who represent stuff like that. So who's going to do it? Please vote no. It's ill-conceived. Abington is already a great place to live. It was a great place to live when I was born in 1958 and all the way through then, and it's been that way without an economic development corporation. People want to move here. I got neighbors just moved in from Syria. You know why? Because the whole rest of the world wishes they could live in Abington the way it is right now. Don't ruin it. Thank you.
Are there others in the room that wish to speak? And then we'll go to Zoom.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane in Meadowbrook. And this is stunning that you are doing this at the height of the vacation season when people are home with their families and family events at the shore and on vacation. It's stunning. Oh, no, it's not even remotely surprising. That is, I don't understand how we get you guys to operate in the interests of the people you're supposed to serve. And, the thing with, so what Mike Tobin said about cost, in fact, what everybody else just said, is, who was against it, is absolutely true. And when we talk about the people that were for it, Kathy Gauthier was one of the people on the Vacant Property Review Board who did their very best to keep the properties blighted, to not require their code enforcement people to cite these properties. Mr. Manfredi, I hope you're listening, to require these people, you're not, you're looking away on purpose. That's absolute, it's so disrespectful.
Ms. Lehman, you'll address your comments to me as the presiding officer.
Fine, that's disrespectful, okay? Mr. DiPlacido hasn't looked up the whole night from his computer. So basically, what I'm saying is that on this committee that she sat on, and she's for this because we're friends of the township, Mr. Spiegelman was there, I could not get anybody to cite these properties, and every single month, I said, has that property been cited? Is it in code? Why hasn't it been cited? And so the response from the manager was to stop holding public vacant property meetings. All canceled. canceled, okay? So we had the township creating blight because they have an impetus here where friends of the township can come and develop it for the process that is proceeding, where they develop one thing and whatever profit they can turn over to another organization that's going to do the same thing. We had 300 pages of comments on the way you want to develop this township, and literally there was one that said that they were okay with it. So you need to do that. Preet and BET, you know, you were dying to get those things in, and literally everybody was against them. So we don't want you deciding how to develop our township, nor doing that with our money. Did you tell the people that they were going to be paying for it, that it would come from grants that come out of their pockets? And Mr. Bowles said there would be tight control over this. If you have tight control, Mr. Bowles, please go down to 100 York Apartments and get any of those
All right,
laws
Ms. Lehman,
enforced.
your time
Any
has
of them.
expired. So
Any of
please
them.
conclude your comments. Is there anyone else in the room that wishes to speak?
My name is Lois Odebash. I live on 211 Maple Avenue in North Hills, and this is my first time speaking at a commissioners' meeting.
Good evening.
I actually came tonight because I'm very concerned that our chief of police has been trashing the duly elected official of a neighboring municipality on local media. I've heard it on WHYY, I've heard it on Action News Channel 6, and I've read it online. I think to begin with, it's completely unprofessional. Absolutely unprofessional for you to blame anything on somebody who was elected in another township. That's not your place. Maybe as a private citizen, fine, but not as the police chief. I also feel that when he puts on that uniform and talks to those reporters, he's representing me, and I don't want to be represented that way. I think that the issues of crime in the city, in the suburbs, they don't lend themselves to a soundbite. They're very complex issues. And I think, and I'm going to say it out loud, when people talk about Philly crime coming to Philadelphia, it is racism. It is racism, pure and simple. And I really think that we need to start considering how we talk about what's happening in our township. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else in the room that wishes to speak? And if not, I will turn it over. Is there anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak?
Ross A., you're unmuted.
Hi, Ross Abel, Upland Avenue. First off, I wanted to note there's at least a couple speakers who said that the Economic Development Corporation would be able to, sounded like change zoning at their will. And from what I understand, that's not true. Someone can chime in if otherwise, but from what I gather, that's not true. I also think it's hard to not see, I think for most residents, that we do have areas that need some improvement, like in Roslyn, where we do have a lot of empty businesses. So I just wanted to say, in agreement with some of the speakers, that I think this would give us a good tool to invest in a targeted fashion in parts of the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesse, you're unmuted.
Hi, this is Jesse. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hi, Board. This is Jesse Civello at 1178 Johnston in Roslyn. I didn't plan on speaking. I was planning on just hearing in, but after hearing about such grandiose plans of this Economic Development Corporation, I had to come and speak in favor of this. This is something that I spent a lot of time looking through last month's agenda. First of all, this is not the first time that residents are being told about it. I understand that, yes, it is a vacation month, but when you have important agenda items, that happens no matter what season it is. I don't think that this is a web of nefarious actors. I do have a couple of outstanding questions that I'm sure will be answered eventually. That would be that when I read, first of all, my background's in as a public servant in tax law, the courts, and in properties. And when I read through things, and especially coming through from my perspective here in Roslyn, I believe that there are, as the gentleman who just spoke before me said, there's a number of properties that are vacant, businesses specifically. But I do believe that it came from the comprehensive plan, which was quite comprehensive. I had COVID. I didn't plan on reading it all, but I did. And it showed in every way that an economic development corporation would benefit all the residents, not just people that are, from the 15th ward where I am, or the 1st ward, or whatever it may be, but all over this township. And whether it happens to be 3 directors or 5, because reading through the legalese, I have not yet determined that the township as a member, it looks like we went from 5 to 3, and with staggering board positions, my concern would just be that I would prefer it to be the number of 5. It seems like there were, reading through past agenda items, a number of residents who are concerned about the ideas behind this corporation, and thought that some reason that if we had less directors, it would be a positive thing. I would beg to differ. I think that having 5 would be a more beneficial thing to all the residents that it would serve. In addition, I do think that one of the things that, this is not to say that, when I hear somebody say something, they're wrong, but when we pay for things, it comes from our tax dollars. I understand that as a public servant, somebody works with my salary being paid by that. And whether it's grants or our tax dollars that make that up, there are checks and balances that keep all of those things in place. And whether it's these meetings or all of us giving our names, the fact that when you apply for a grant, you have to make sure that you're actually using the money specifically for those purposes, I really just want to put to rest, and a final breath for me, because I'm still wrestling over COVID, unfortunately, is that this is not going to be some nefarious thing. I really don't view it as something, but as an instrument to further develop areas, especially in my neighborhood, that are not performing as well as some of the more affluent areas. And I saw that in the comprehensive plan when the top percent and the lowest percent are the highest growth. And Roslyn specifically had the most medium income.
Thank you.
And
Mr. Stowe, I'm going to ask you to wrap up your comments.
Sure. My thought is just that I would hope that you guys would continue to move forward with that, and I appreciate that you guys listen to everybody's perspective. That's all.
Thank you.
Kia Upgar, you're unmuted.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. For the EDC, the only thing I ask for, we do need economic development in Abington, especially in Roslyn. I'm in 14th Ward. What I do ask that you include people that have lived in Roslyn for quite some time with the economic committee that you do choose. I do agree with the gentleman, 3 isn't enough, 5 is enough, and maybe those 2 can be, again, residents of Roslyn. The last but not least, I did write a list, John Spiegelman has it, and he knows my concerns. He will share it with Lori Schreiber, my commissioner, and then I will discuss it with them privately. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. With that, we will now move on to the consent agenda. And for that, I will turn to Board Vice President Matt Behe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for passage of the consent agenda listed as items A through D. And I so move.
Second.
Consent agenda has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no unfinished business this evening, so we will move forward with new business. And once again, I will turn to Board Vice President Matt Behe.
First item of new business is BOC-04-081023, motion to adopt ordinance number 2208, creating the Abington Township Economic Development Corporation. And I so move.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Are there comments from members of the board? Vice President Vehi.
Thank you, Mr. President. So why do we need this? Why do I think we need this Economic Development Corporation? When I worked for then State Representative Josh Shapiro, we partnered with the township to conduct a study of the Aldrich Road corridor. 15 years later, we as a township are still struggling to implement just one of the many recommendations in that report, and that's the intersection of 611 and Susquehanna Road. In my view, this project and our shortcomings there have demonstrated that we lack the expertise as a township to promote responsible economic development. And it's not just the Aldrich Road corridor study. We have numerous plans sitting on the shelves gathering dust. And really nothing drives me more crazy than that. So watching our efforts to try to implement those changes and our struggles to do so is what generated the discussion around the Economic Development Corporation. Since then, we've conducted 8 public meetings. We've heard extensive public comment on the proposal, and we made many, many changes based on that input. The fact that we did not adopt all the suggestions does not mean we did not hear you. We just disagree on policy. Then, since the debate, we lived through a global pandemic, which has entirely changed the face of the economy in the suburbs. I have not ever felt a greater sense of urgency to do something to make sure this community stays a great place to live. And I don't believe I'd be fulfilling my duty as a commissioner if I didn't try everything possible to make sure that this continues to be a great place. We all chose to live here. We all agree that this community is great, but there's nothing wrong with saying that it could be better, and I believe it could be. We've had extensive debates on the mall. What's the future of retail in Abington Township? I don't know the answer to these questions. That's why I want an Economic Development Corporation, which we will fill with experts in this area to make sure we are making the right decisions and the responsible development continues. There was many comments tonight about how much this would cost the taxpayers and why don't we have financial details attached to this plan. That's because this is intended to be an independent corporation that will not be funded by the taxpayers or the tax base. If we decide to provide any funding to the corporation to get started, that will be decided in the next budget in December or the year after. No money's been committed, and it's not. If this is going to be a drain on the resources of the township, that completely defeats the purpose, and we would not allow it to go forward. I also just want to comment, the EDC will not have the power to change zoning. That will remain with the Board of Commissioners, and the EDC can't approve land development plans. That still is purview of the Board of Commissioners. This will just be another tool to help implement change in the township, but still would have to abide by all the laws of the United States, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and this township. And finally, one resident commented that they did not want this Board of Commissioners or the EDC to decide how the township is to be developed. But who else does that leave? Just commercial real estate developers. Without, okay, excuse me, without, okay, so if the Board of Commissioners is not going to direct development in this township, and the Economic Development Corporation is not going to direct development in this township, that only leaves commercial real estate developers. That's just a simple truth. No. Commercial real estate developers only have one interest, and no disrespect, honestly, no disrespect, but they have a profit motivation, and they're only going to take on projects that are beneficial to their investors and the members of their corporations. This will be a nonprofit corporation. There will not be profit motivation. The only motivation of this corporation will be to develop this township in the best interest of the community and the residents. I don't see a better way for residents of this township to have a greater say in how this township is developed in the future. So I support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vehi. Are there comments? Commissioner Zappone.
Thank you. I went through this document several times, and I come up with a few comments. The issue I have is that the township is basically setting up a corporation, and I got a problem with that. We, as the Board of Commissioners, it's like we have no say with this. who they put on as directors and all. Just come as you are, do as you please. I have a problem with that. A question I have is the members that are on the current EDC committee, are they in some kind of way, any of them, all of them, going to be placed on this? I don't see anything here that says that. I have received several calls, not only from my residents of Ward 9, but outside of my ward over the past few weeks. You know, emails, messages left on my home phone with concerns about this. I have always voted in the best interest of my residents, and in 23 years, no one has ever influenced my vote except my residents. And that's the way I am. I vote from my heart. I vote for what my residents want. And I've been going around the past 3 or 4 months, and I hear it constantly. So these are the concerns and the comments I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sapone. Commissioner Henry had her hand.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll get to you. Lori? Oh, you didn't? All right. Commissioner Spiegelman.
Thank you, President Hecker. There's very little I can say that my friend and colleague, Vice President Vahey, hasn't absolutely stated perfectly. To address my friend Commissioner Sapone's concerns and other concerns that have been raised, the Board of Commissioners will not only appoint the members of the board of directors of the corporation if the EDC comes to pass, but will also be able to dismiss any or all of them, and in fact dissolve the entire corporation if things don't go well. It will not take a 4-year process like this was. It would be a simple vote put on whatever the next agenda is. That's the controllability. Yes, the controllability would come through us, through the Board of Commissioners. Along the same lines, some very important bodies are appointed through the Board of Commissioners and reappointed only through the Board of Commissioners, like the Zoning Hearing Board and many others, whether Zoning Hearing Board, Planning Commission, EAC, Shade Tree. That's part of our responsibility, is to appoint these positions and to not reappoint if there's a problem. Obviously, some of those, unlike this corporation, the Zoning Hearing Board can affect zoning from, from individual property to individual property. But we will retain that control. Again, Commissioner Vahey's points were spot on, but that point about if we don't do this, it will fall to the corporations. That's basically what it is now. Developers come to us, and we respond to them. They come to us with plans, and yeah, many of the plans that developers come to us with involve apartments. We actually haven't approved any, despite, actually, I take that back. We've approved almost no apartments in an extremely long time, because people come out and they share their opinions. We've been at loggerheads with developers many, many times. But the fact of the matter is, developers are the ones who are coming forth with the proposals. They're the ones who are calling the shots. All we can do is react. There are advisory committees before which they go, like the Planning Commission, but ultimately we are reacting to their plans. This gives us, it's as Vice President Vahey said, it's a tool. It's a tool that gives us, among other things, the beginnings of having a seat at the developer's table. That has never happened before. And I just want to personally thank Vice President Vahey, thank Manager Manfredi, and everyone else. It's been an honor working on this for so many years, and I am grateful to every resident who's come out and given and made comments about this throughout the entire process. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Spiegelman. Are there other members of the board? Okay, Commissioner Sapone.
Also going through this, it said a member can live anywhere in the state of Pennsylvania. Well, who's better to have on this if it's going to go through? But what I'm saying is the people that actually, business people and all that live in Abington that know what's going on in Abington. I've been here 38 years. I know what's going on in Abington. You get somebody from upstate or something, doesn't know about Abington. Although
Commissioner Schreiber?
I wasn't actually going to say anything this evening because I've spoken at many meetings at this point about this. I'm excited by the chance to have another tool in our toolbox, something else that will be positive. As I think we heard, many of the residents of Roslyn did get up today and talk about how they are in favor of this. I've not gotten any negatives from my ward. I have heard from people who couldn't make it to the meeting tonight who also want this to come through and wanted me to express for them that they are not happy with the business district, that they're hoping that this will be another area. You know, I've lived in Roslyn myself for, I don't know, a really long time, 20-something years, almost 30 years. And we've tried a lot of different things. Nothing has been successful so far. I'm hoping this will be. I loved what Commissioner Vahey said this evening. I thought it really put everything in perspective of how much work has gone into this. 4 years, 8 public meetings. It's been, vetted, and it kept coming up tonight about 3 people being on the board. I think our hope is that we will have 5. We just want to have a minimum so that we can get started, but we'd like to populate it with more people like that than 3. I mean, 5 would be an ideal number. If we can get 5 qualified people, they may be residents of Roslyn, they may not be. I can't say they will be, but we want people that have good expertise that can really help with economic development, that really know that as a field, and I think that's really important. And I look forward to this. I hope this passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Schreiber. Other comments from members of the board?
President Hecker, just a quick correction to something I said.
Okay.
It was very neglectful of me to forget to mention the fact that Commissioner Schreiber has been working tirelessly on economic development in the Roslyn Valley since long before any of this was proposed, long before the Ward Corporation came into play. I should have said that in my comments. My apologies.
Thank you, Commissioner Spiegelman. Commissioner Boll, then Commissioner Rossman.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat what some of my colleagues have said. I share their sentiments. I think it's okay to acknowledge some of the risks here. I mean, it's okay to say that. Are there risks? Yeah, of course there are risks. Have we thought through and mitigated a lot of those risks? I think we have, right? Like, is there a possibility that the wrong people get appointed to the board and they need us to step in and, as Commissioner Spiegelman has said, reappoint? Yeah, that's a possibility. Is it a possibility? Yeah. Is it a possibility that we get impatient with the level of investment if we decide to put into it and we don't see returns fast enough? That's a possibility too. We'll evaluate that as we go. But I also agree with Vice President Vahey's overwhelming sentiment that we need tools. I mean, I think the concerns that have been brought to me are around accountability and cost. I think we've accounted for that. And I think we've accounted for the stopgaps that are in place to make sure that they don't run over. I also have spent a lot of time trying to reconcile comments that are coming to me in good faith, I think, that say 2 things. One, God, I wish we could do something with X property. And 2, the EDC is a horrible idea. The EDC is the tool for X. It is not, as we said before, the panacea. It is not the cure-all. It won't do everything in a year. It has certain risks. It requires accountability. It requires conversation. It requires the right people. It requires the right level of funding. All of that is absolutely true. But if we had a hard and fast plan, we wouldn't need the corporation to do anything. By virtue of having the plan, we would just need people to implement said plan. We need expertise, people who can look at P&L statements, who can look at ledgers, who can look at business trends, who can understand how the pandemic has impacted, like it or not, our community, who can understand community input, understand where the pressure points are, where the opportunities are, synthesize all of that, and make a recommendation to move forward. That's the way I process and think about it. I do think of it as a tool. It's a wonderful word to use. It's a risk worth taking. I also don't see it as a huge risk. because of the way this has been thought through, the way the public has offered input, and the way that some of that input has been incorporated into the documents. So I'm an enthusiastic yes for this, and I look forward to moving forward, and I thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bull. Commissioner Rothman.
I wanted to address, I received a question or two as to means by which this could be funded. And we do have the ARPA funds available, a certain amount, a potentially significant amount, but there's a lot of things that the board wants to do. And I think that that would be one of the mechanisms by which, wherefrom we would start. I share the sentiments that have been expressed by many of the residents, which I think the real overwhelming one is, if this stinks, are we stuck? And the answer is no, we're not stuck. And to me, we up here have a series of difficult decisions each year, some bigger than others. Some take 4 years for us to dig through, and many conversations back and forth with residents as well. We have another one coming later tonight. That's one of the ones where I'm not a slam dunk one way or the other, right? But our job is to have some foresight. And it's already in front of us that there's economic difficulty that's faced here and elsewhere around our country, particularly post-COVID. And we don't have the expertise up here. Some of us have great ideas of what we'd like to do. Some of you out there have great ideas of what we'd like to do. The people that are selected for this board, if we spent 4 years coming up with the idea and vetting it, we're not going to spend 4 minutes picking the 3 people that run it. And those people are going to be qualified. My hope is that there'll be people that I'm really proud to be running with that idea, that concept that has developed over these years. But yeah, there are, and people have pointed out, there are some economic development corporations that have failed miserably. None of us up here are saying that this is perfect or foolproof. But I do think that one of the ways in which we can move forward and look at a bright future here, avoiding blight, avoiding there being places without business opportunity, is to do that. And at least, as Commissioner Spiegelman said, at least some of this is under our control with the way that we've crafted this, and that we can control who is on the board and how it moves, if it even exists 2 years from now, 10 years from now. So while it's not my favorite thing in the world, and I know it's a difficult thing to move forward with, I'm going to vote in favor of it. And I understand that that's with risk, but there's many things that we vote on that carry some risk. But this one, I feel like we've put in, as Commissioner Bull said, put in a lot of safeguards to make sure that if we do make a mistake, that we collectively can say, you know what, that wasn't the best idea. And I don't think any of us are too afraid to admit that to the public, should that happen. But hopefully, and I think I'm optimistic that it's going to be a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rothman. Commissioner Henry.
I like this for a lot of reasons. I think this is a good thing. I really do like the idea of targeting and seeking out very specific places that need help. And I always think of the corridor on Easton Road in Roslyn. Always, there's just so much potential there. And I get that. I think that just based on some of the responses I've heard from folks around town and even here tonight, I think people are afraid of the word corporation. I think that's a concern of people. I think it sounded to some as though this is like we're hiring a larger corporation to come in and take over, when actually it's really intended to meet up against outside corporations, developing corporations, not even against so much as to, and coming to the table with them. And I think that's powerful and important, but I think it'd be helpful for just a crib sheet for those who haven't been on for the 8 meetings over the 4 years to just do a quick overview of why is it called a corporation? I know it's a thing that exists in other places, but why a corporation, and in what ways does it differ from the committee that already exists? Just a quick overview of just fine-tuning that for folks who are having a hard time following that. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Henry. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. I'm thinking about, when I think about what the potential of what an EDC can do for our community. I think of my neighbor, Ian, who lives on Maple Avenue, who owns Yellow Rose Tattoo on Limekiln Pike. I think of Dante, who owns the auto shop at the corner of North Hills Avenue and Mount Carmel. I think of Union Jacks. I think of Richmond's. And what a thriving retail corridor could look like for North Hills, where people can walk, enjoy themselves, go home, and have a safe night out. There are several, if you walk up and down 152, there are several empty properties that are there that need help. And as has been said before, this is not a cure-all, but it's a tool in the arsenal to help and to help point us in the right direction. And one of the questions that I asked at the last meeting was, does the formation of this corporation and the guidance that we got from the comprehensive plan, does it eliminate any other areas? And the answer was no, it doesn't. So I'm looking forward to what this EDC can do for the Abington community, how it can stabilize small businesses and small business corridors in our community. One of the things that helps small businesses in our community is consistency. I don't think anybody in Abington wants to see small businesses start and then leave and have that happen at a high frequency. The EDC is one of those things that can help stabilize the small business community. So I will be voting yes tonight. I'm keeping the small business owners in my community in mind with my vote because they are my neighbors. They are my neighbors, and they live in Abington. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Carswell.
I know when I first started, I was told not to admit I didn't grow up here, but I grew up in Colorado, and I'm proud of it. I loved it. And my parents don't live in the house that I grew up in. They live in Greeley, Colorado, which is 50% bigger than Abington, and they have the most beautiful library I have ever seen. They have a really healthy tax base because they have residents, apartment livers, they have corporations, and they have fracking. When I look at what works for them and what works for us, I am jealous. I look at our mall as one of our biggest taxpayers, and I worry, and I know some of you wish you were in the room when we have these conversations one-on-one, but I do. I talk to my colleagues about the fact that the mall may not be a mall in a matter of months, right? I look at corridors throughout the township that have empty businesses that have been empty my entire tenure, and I haven't been on this board that long, and there are ones that have been empty even longer than that. And I think to sit here and say that Abington is perfect the way it is right now is a mistake. I think to value what we have and to want it to continue to be better in the future is the right thing to do. And if voting in support of this is the reason why someone else takes my job, because the residents of Ward 10, who, by the way, have not emailed me angry about this, then so be it. But I feel very strongly that as a commissioner, I can't vacation anywhere in this country without looking at other municipalities and saying, ooh, I really like how they handled traffic safety, or how they handle their public works, or how they have the most beautiful library. I am always thinking about how can I make Abington an ounce better than it was before I became commissioner. And I believe that everybody on this board, regardless of how we feel about different issues, came to this role for that very reason. So I'm a big fat yes for this, because I think this is an effort to make Abington continue to be better. And I say that knowing that we will have bumps in the road, because nothing since I've been on this board has been quick and easy. There's been some comments tonight and at previous meetings about how land development happens by night. I kid you not. I laugh at that comment, and I'm sorry if that offends you, but nothing happens quickly on this board. It takes months for anything to be considered and approved, and there's lots of arguments and conversations and public meetings. And I think that this corporation will have more of that as well. And it's a good way for residents who feel they have expertise to step up and volunteer, put your name in for an application for this. I'd love to see more people volunteer. It's why I served on our volunteer recruitment and placement committee. I think it's really important that we have more people involved. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. Commissioner Brown, certainly.
For anyone who wants to talk about why I'm voting yes, my cell phone number is on the website. I have not received any calls this past month. It's been there since I was appointed, so feel free to email me or call me to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Any final comments from members of the board? And if not, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
No?
One opposed. Motion passed.
Thank you. Motion carries. We'll now move to item C, new business.
Next item is BOC-06081023, motion to reapprove the Holy Redeemer Health System Agreement for law enforcement services, and I so move.
Second.
The matter has been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions from members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Last item of new business is BOC-07081023, motion to approve the preliminary and final land development LD-22-06, LD-22-06, 2620 Westmoreland Road, Raising Cane's, and I so move.
Second. Has been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions for members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
That concludes the new business tonight, Mr. President.
Thank you, Vice President Vehy. We'll now move to the Finance Committee, and for that, I will turn to Finance Committee Chair, Commissioner Stuart Weingrad.
Thank you, President Hecker. First up, the only item FC01081023, motion to approve the June 2023 expenditures in the amount of $202,519,813.89, and salaries and wages in the amount of $3,356,402.81, and authorizing the proper officials to sign and approve invoices and supporting documentation and payment of bills and contracts as they mature through the month of September 2023, and I so move.
Second. It has been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioners Brodsky? Yes. Rothman?
Yes.
Placido?
Yes.
Vaughn? Brown?
Yes.
Weingrab?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
Sapone?
Yes.
Carswell?
Yes.
Spiegelman?
Yes.
Bowl?
Yes.
Shriver?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Vice President Vehy?
Yes.
President Hecker?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
And that would conclude the Finance Committee agenda items for this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Weingrad. We will now open it up for public comment on general matters of township business. Please state your name, and you will have 3 minutes.
My name's Adele Cubell, and I would very much like to thank Joe Rooney for organizing a successful cleanup of Abington Township's auxiliary parking lot. The cleanup event included numerous volunteers. Liz Ferry, a candidate for county commissioner, participated in the cleanup. The volunteers hauled 2 trailer loads of debris from the township lot. Perhaps, Mr. Hecker, you would take a moment before the close of this meeting to acknowledge these wonderful volunteers. This is the photo I showed last week, and it was wonderful for these people to step up and get rid of the weeds, the debris and garbage that was in the auxiliary lot. Solicitor Michael Clark needs to be actively involved with the properties that remain blighted. I have brought the same properties to the attention of the board for almost 2.5 years. Edge Hill Apartments that front Old York Road, yards of demolished curbside. This area includes even a bus stop. Raymore and Flanagan continues to add trash to their dump site. $40 fines are not enough for a billion-dollar corporation to pay. The Liss and Merriam buildings invite crime. Both buildings are blighted beyond repair. This is a small pocket area that should be bought by the township and restored to green space. Stop throwing money at consultants. Buy this area and create some green space. Again, Starbucks, broken down sidewalks for years. Crafty Crab, broken down sidewalks, open dumpster. District Taco, open dumpster for years. Smile Center, open dumpster for years. Sloan, Uniforms, Kung Fu Tea, and other restaurants grow 3-foot-high weeds still after 2.5 years. Abington Township and the hospital should not be adding to the blight. Major streets plagued by trash and gutters filled with debris. That's what we have. The hospital-owned garages that are next to the auxiliary parking lot that was just cleaned are unsafe and invite crime. This is hospital property right next to a parking lot that is used by township officials. This is horrendous. These garages need to go. Perhaps the hospital could plant a vegetable garden, butterfly garden, or even native plants and shady trees, or even cement with the names of donors. The dictatorial policies and absolute lack of honesty here will undermine and destroy the voters' confidence, especially mine and others, in the state and national Democratic Party. Did Governor Shapiro, who brought many of you to leadership positions, actually want you to trash the hometown? This is an area that you can't miss. This is an area that could be fixed. The properties that I've talked about for 2.5 years, there's more than the power to fix them right here, and it hasn't happened yet. I've gone around in circles. I've done everything that's asked of me. I've made lists, photos, emails. Many of them are not answered. Many of you who say you answer phone calls
Ms.
have never
Kubel, please
answered one
conclude
of
your
mine.
comments.
When will it get fixed?
Please sit down. Are there others that wish to speak on general matters of township business?
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of Abington Township Board of Commissioners, community members, and esteemed township staff. My name is Kristen Kugelman. I live at Parkdale and Edgeley and have 2 kids in Abington schools. I'm here today as a representative of a vibrant and passionate group that is dedicated to enhancing the lives of Greater Glenside neighbors. We are the Greater Glenside Civic Association, and we are excited and honored to introduce ourselves to the Board of Commissioners tonight. Our association was born out of a deep love and commitment to our neighborhood. As residents of Glenside, we recognize the immense potential that lies within our neighborhood. We believe that by joining forces and fostering a spirit of collaboration and cooperation, we can achieve remarkable progress together. Our mission that I'll share with you is to be a voice of Glenside and Keswick Village neighbors and residents, and to strengthen and beautify our community, promote community building activities, support and advocate for responsible local development, and serve as a collaborative ally with neighboring communities and organizations. Today, I have several members of the board with me, if they'd like to stand up. We have assembled an amazing group of people who are going to make a lot of progress happen in Glenside. They're executives, they're leaders in their own fields, and we have a tremendous amount of passion to move many progress forward. I want to thank Commissioner Vahey for bringing the original group together last December. We're looking forward to working with him and Commissioner Bowles to make many, many projects happen together. The Greater Glenside Civic Association is not just a collection of individuals, we're a collective force that have a shared vision. And our vision is one of unity where neighbors come together to address the challenges and opportunities that our community faces. We've made a lot of progress already. We've formed 4 communities: economic development, neighborhood improvement, marketing, and events. And we're committed to enhancing the quality of life for all of those in Greater Glenside. we held our first community meeting. 75 people poured in the door. This is a group of people beyond the board who want to make Glenside and Keswick Village a vibrant place to live. We've sent out our first newsletter. We've established ourselves with key stakeholders, and we now are a 501c4 with the state of Pennsylvania. So in short time since our session, we have made a lot of strides to achieving some of our goals, and we look forward to sharing those with you in the coming months. We recognize that this journey has just begun. We're not here only to introduce ourselves to the township and the Board of Commissioners, but we're extending an invitation, and it's a call to action, really, to each and every member here and our fellow residents behind me and other places. We invite you to join us in our endeavor as we stand together for our community's best interests. As the Greater Glenside Civic Association, we pledge to be dedicated and constructive partners to the Abington Township Board of Commissioners and township staff. We are here to listen, to collaborate, and to contribute in any way we can. We're getting ready to take on some very ambitious projects over the next, I would say, 12 to 18 months, and so this type of partnership will be very meaningful to achieve those goals. So in closing, I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to address the board tonight. We look forward to strong partnerships, not only with this team and the township team, and certainly the police department here, who's also there, and working hand in hand with you to really create a strong Glenside and Keswick Village. So thank you so much, and looking forward to partnering.
Thank you. Likewise. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Joe Rooney, that was awesome. Thank you for your enthusiasm. So, we have two commissioners from Roslyn. This is exactly why you don't need an Economic Development Corporation, which now we have. If those two commissioners from Roslyn had taken the time to generate such enthusiasm to bring 75 people out, maybe we wouldn't solve the whole Roslyn corridor, but you'd solve at least one point at a time. You don't fix whole townships, pick one and make it happen, okay? For my friend Commissioner Vahey, your plans that you developed with Mr. Shapiro evidently weren't that good. If 15 years later there's nothing happened, or you didn't pick one and try to make it happen, all right? And then also the idea that somebody says we haven't devoted any money to it, you just voted in a corporation. You're going to put my dollars and everybody else's dollars into that corporation. So yes, you have. You just haven't told us how much money you're putting into it right now. So, and I know the commissioners always get out there and they thank each other for doing such a great job. I'd like to turn
Mr. Rooney, please, no, you're to address me as the presiding officer.
I am addressing you.
No.
So I'd like to say to everybody, thank you for the time you've come to all of these meetings.
Okay.
To the unelected people who care enough about our township, and I would think commissioners would actually recognize them too. To Laura, to Adele, to people whose name I apologize, who agree or don't agree, who came to the meetings, sat on Saturday afternoons or whatever. They put in that time too, and they did it on their own because they are interested. And thank God we have that in Abington. So that's awesome. So a couple other things, and again, if you give me 3 minutes here, I'll try and cover a few things that were brought up. For Matt, we've got the money. For Mr. Brown, thanks. I'm sorry that you did that way. I wish you to come to some of the meetings. And look, if you want to work on Limekiln Pike, talk to that lady right there. Or even better yet,
Mr. Rooney, you are to address me as the presiding officer.
Go buy one of the properties on Limekiln Pike and start a little business, because anybody that thinks that the Economic Development Corporation is for small businesses like a tattoo parlor or one little restaurant, they're wrong. It's for looking at the mall and trying to figure out how to put high-density stuff in there, because the problem with the mall is the same problem that happened with Kitty City on Roslyn, or happens with Runaround Sports in Roslyn, is what happens is Kmart and Walmart and Amazon come in, and then they aren't, I used to go to Kitty City as a kid, they're not there anymore because that business isn't viable. That's it. I'm not an economist and I can't figure everything out, but I can figure out what makes a business fail, and it's they don't get enough feet in the door. For Ms. Carswell, I would say the great news is I'm going to put you down as pro-fracking. That's awesome, okay? Because you look at that, and Greeley, I've been there. So come on out next time we clean up one of these properties that Adele points out. We'd love to have you. That's how you make our community better. Join that lady right there. That's how we make our community better. And I know I'm out of time, so thank you all for your time, and I'm sorry you voted it in, and we're gonna see how much of my money you're gonna put into doing that. Oh yeah, one last thing. What happened, what did the giving thousands of dollars to Razzies on Lime Kiln Pike do? What happened with that of my money that we gave to them? How did that develop us? That's in our area. So we voted last year to put a couple $1,000 into one little spot. What happened to it? I wish you could answer that before you put the tens or hundreds of thousands.
All right,
into
Mr.
the next
Rooney,
spot.
your time has expired.
Thanks, sir.
George Salona, 1211 Nolan Road. I was driving across Easton Road. A Pizza Hut opened with overflowing business. Interestingly, it happened without an economic development corporation. Yes, I know I'm being sarcastic. I want it noted that I was trying to describe an IRS ruling which was very important to your creation of an EDC. I was not permitted to finish. I will not discuss it since it obviously doesn't do any good. I am extremely disappointed that you don't even have the courtesy to postpone this vote. Even if I disagree with it, with the results, I think postponing it might have built some bridges, might have created some goodwill between you and the people. I don't know how versed you are in the laws of the nonprofits, but I'm wondering, are we going to see a copy of the 501c3 application and/or approval, which will not happen, because when I read the Public Charities Act, this EDC violates virtually every provision of it. I respect your right to vote your opinion, but I think you need to reconsider how you treat the citizens of Abington that show up here, that give their time. They deserve more respect.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward?
Hi, I'm Karen Milovich Davis. We live in 529 Berkeley Avenue. We're in the Hollywood section. I wanted to discuss some problems in my local area. Drew might be aware. The shopping center across the street, the Huntington Valley Shopping Center, has an extreme amount of foot traffic. There are people in the fire lanes. There's 5 restaurants with 2 more coming along the way. I know they don't talk to any of the homeowners about it because they don't feel like they care about it, actually. The amount of trash, graffiti, and it's just the Wild West as far as parking. People are just leaving their car anywhere to go into various stores. They're going the wrong way in one-way traffic. It's a very, very congested area. I think at this point, I know several people in a lot of the stores are having a lot of trouble with crime. The amount of people coming in and out of the shopping center are probably one of the highest amount of people next to the Willow Grove Mall. I think they need their own kind of a security. The police have very often voiced that they don't have any power over there, as in people going the wrong way, people going in the out kind of areas. There's 2 homeless people living in the parking lot, and it's just starting to have so much traffic and so many people that it is going to be problematic. There's also another problem on Huntington Pike that the police officers that I've spoken to feel like they can't address. From 10:30 at night until about 2 in the morning, we have racing all down Huntington Pike, motorcycle and cars. The police officers don't know how to deal with this. From what I've heard, they fear that they will get hurt and/or citizens will get hurt. But we need to do something about it. It's a problem. And just as it's gone on in other areas of Pennsylvania, I believe it's not really good for the people racing the cars, and it's certainly not good for the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. They're coming to get me. So Mr. Manfredi, I hope, was taking down notes on that, and he doesn't have any. Maybe your notes you'll give to him, and get back to Carrie about the racing and see what's going to be done. That's how it should work. That's not how it works, okay? And Adele shouldn't be having to pay for and hold up pictures. She already paid for a projector. She could put the picture right here. It could be seen at home and from everywhere else. The disrespect is endless, and we want to change that. My tone is because of the disrespect. The disrespect is not my tone to you first. It came the other way first, and you need to change that. The problem that we have with the EDC is that there was not one single example, and not one. If I was going to convince somebody that this was good for them, I'd say, look, I'm going to build this. Let's say it maybe could cost this, and this is what's going to happen, and here's some examples of what we want to see. Don't have any of that. And we know why, because the residents wouldn't like what they saw if you put that together. Okay? They're not going to see all of that. You're going to keep that from them, as you have kept it from us since 2019, all those meetings. Okay? And I want to say that Mr. Spiegelman put out in his newsletter, literally nearly every single one of those things was false. Said that we couldn't buy properties. You just bought those properties on York and Susquehanna. You're able to buy the properties. Okay? Said that you had to react to things. You couldn't actually decide them. Of course you can. That's what the Economic Development Committee was for. A group of people that you chose, and you seem to be able to think you can choose some other ones since these ones didn't work out. You chose them because of their expertise in being able to figure out how to plan things like that and encourage people to build them. Mr. Goodman was even on that committee. It's stunning that immediately when you brought up the corporation, they said, oh, we don't know how to do anything. Okay? So the things that you do, you were able, with the corporation, you were able to do before, and you did many of them before. And Mr. Spiegelman, I'll be happy to go over every single one of those points with you, okay? And I know you won't allow the time here, but you should, because the public should hear why every single one of those points was not true.
Ms. Lehman, please conclude your comments.
Okay, so all I can tell you is that the people from Abington have not wanted almost anything that you pushed. The PREET development, the BET development, people broke their faces on this dais to vote for those things. And with the PREET thing, you led people on with 400 versions of the history of shopping.
Please
so
wrap
let me
up.
just finish my sentence on it, okay?
You can finish your sentence.
Is that if we didn't like the things that you absolutely wanted, and we don't like the comp plan, which all of you know, and we would like to have a say in it, why would you think that we would want you choosing exactly how to develop our township? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I think we have one person on Zoom.
Ross, you're unmuted.
Hi, Ross Abel on Upland Avenue with Jenkintown Abington Neighbors, and I'm a co-chair of Pike, Montgomery County. I wanted to first offer solidarity with residents of 100 York dealing with terrible conditions, and continually want to support the township taking more action in protecting tenants in situations like this. Separately, I want to ask our Abington representatives if you can commit to learning about and supporting Vision Zero. I've spoken about this on a previous call, but it's the pursuit of zero traffic deaths on our streets through traffic calming and truly safe infrastructure for pedestrians, children, the disabled, and cyclists. According to PennDOT's database, from 2018 to 2022, there were 9 pedestrians killed and 114 injured by drivers across Jenkintown and Abington. Traffic violence is now the other biggest killer of young Americans, in addition to gun violence, and the numbers are skyrocketing, particularly for pedestrians with larger and heavier vehicles. Separately, I want to support the proposals of the Parks and Open Space Master Plan. I know this, of course, wasn't getting voted on tonight, to add pedestrian connectivity to Alberthorpe. There are no other ways besides the main entrance for us neighbors to get into the park and be able to utilize it with our families. And separately, I'd love to support opening up the park to our great neighbors like those in Jenkintown and therein increasing funding opportunities. Also want to support an update to the bicycle master plan to include physically protected lanes for cyclists, because without protections, the lanes are not sufficient to truly keep people wanting to get active and on their bikes safe in the process. And then last thing, I want to support the township pursuing a park near Noble Station and plans for the Noble TOD for a walkable district north of the tracks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Remington Darren, you're unmuted.
Hello, my name is Remington. I live on Highland Avenue. I've been here for almost 2 years now, I think. I just wanted to voice support for, I guess, everything you guys do to kind of make this a more walkable, livable area for pedestrians and people. I also want to talk about how as myself, I bike to work every day. I appreciate the little infrastructure we have. However, that could be better. I really just urge you guys to update the infrastructure plan and expand on it. It's more importantly, the protected bike lanes, creating those and, adding to the existing bike lanes that we have. They're just painted shoulders. They do almost nothing from, drunk drivers or from cars, just distracted drivers going into those bike lanes. If you guys haven't biked on them, it's probably because you are afraid for using them or what have you. So it would really increase the amount of bikers around here if we had protected infrastructure. It would get more people out instead of cars, and it would be better for the community. There's many, many reasons why. And for the painted bike lanes that we had, I can count on my fingers how many we have in Abington. So increasing the connections for bikers would be amazing. It would definitely improve the community that we have. I also wanted to urge you guys to learn about Vision Zero. It's, just zero pedestrian or people deaths from traffic. I think that's something to learn about and to try to pursue as commissioners and for this township. I think that's something that we can all agree on is less deaths. And then I also wanted to support the 100 York Road residents. As a renter myself, I'm worried about the lack of protections and urge you to take some action to help renters have agency against landlords that just don't treat people like humans. So that's all I have to say, and thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Jesse, you're unmuted. Jesse, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. That's Jesse at 1178 Johnston here in Roslyn again. I just feel that one thing we certainly do not lack is a population that isn't excited. And we heard from people all across the board when it came to the EDC. I think that it's worth clarifying that my former position was as a tax agent specializing in business privilege taxes, which is a rather arbitrary tax that has nothing to do with the actual EDC itself, yet everything to do with why we need one. I won't bore you with why these idiosyncrasies are important. One of the most laborious taxes in the Commonwealth, and also one of the least instituted. But also, when BPT dollars don't hold and they fold, our property taxes, which I've heard so much about, and how things in neighborhoods will collapse. All of those things will increase by very virtue of not having funding. And when people argue over, well, it's going to be our tax dollars that come from it. Yes, ultimately it is, because we're talking about government here, folks. Whether it's at the most local ring of government, or if you want to castigate Shapiro's administration or the legislative house and whatever inadequacies you may find, everybody has to work together. And whether we like it or not, at the commissioner's level, we are the lowest rung. And I believe it was Commissioner Henry, who said, at least this gives us a seat at the table. And it's true. Everybody had thoughtful comments, especially the folks I disagreed with, because you made me come back and talk again, even if I'm winded with COVID. And I don't believe that something like the collapse of a local scale economy, such as the mall, would be something that would be okay with anybody. And when we have an EDC, we can direct development. It's another tool, as one of our commissioners said, it's just a tool in our chest. And there are 4 examples that I can name just from the comprehensive plan: Phoenixville, Lansdowne, Collegeville, and Chester, which have these EDCs and which were actually beneficial to them, okay? And maybe as I believe it was Commissioner Rothman said, years down the line, and Commissioner Bill Bowl said, we might not like this, but we do the best that we can to mitigate what we have in the current situation. Because right now, there are 2 commissioners from Roslyn, and they are acutely aware of how things are not going so great in our area. So I appreciate it when there's great things that are in the other 13 wards, but they're paying attention and they're seeing the same things that I do. And it sucks seeing your neighborhood fall apart. And I'm not advocating that everybody be on the board from Roslyn, but I will be clear and say that, who will make these directors up? It won't be this nefarious, shady group. It'll be the community as a whole. So for everybody that's upset, get involved, apply to be a director. That's what it's called. It's not some corporation. I worked to try and get rid of corporations when I lived in Cheltenham because we had what's called a home rule charter. We don't have that here in Abington. But you know what? When corporations come in, the EDC, as a quasi-government nonprofit, will allow us to have a seat at the table. And that's, again, thank you for voting in the positive for this EDC. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved and seconded.
We are adjourned.